All right, this is Todd Atkins, and we're back with another episode of the MMA Conspiracy Hour with Miguel Iturrate. And I just want to plug our new sponsor, which is Live to Fight Design. You can find them on Instagram at Live to Fight Design, and they make fight banners and gym banners for MMA. So check that out. We have a promo code, which is Todd Atkins, TODDATKINS. You get 20% off your order. So again, that's Live to Fight Design. You can also find them at livetofightdesign.com. And Miguel, today we're going to talk about kind of we don't know if Francis Ngannou is going to sign with PFL, but there seems to be, I would say, like a little bit of a swell building that might be the case. So today we're going to kind of talk about Francis Ngannou, the PFL, kind of, maybe the pluses and minuses of that, what that might look like. And also, because he trains at Extreme Couture, we're going to talk about Randy Couture's history with the UFC and how this might have at least been a talking point with him somewhere along the way. So, Miguel, I kind of want to let you kind of open your statements on this.
Okay, like, am I mistaken, or the PFL kicked off their season, and I think Ngannou appeared on the broadcast? Is that right?
That I don't know. I didn't watch it all the way. I did watch some of it.
Or there was commentary. I thought he was on the commentary team. I may be wrong on that. I don't watch the PFL, and that's part of the problem for Ngannou, is that him going that way, it seems like a B class move to me. It's still, the PFL is a league that I just don't consider anywhere near the UFC. I think that Bellator is a better league in terms of marketability, or what the marketing has done over the last few years. I think Bellator is not a great league, but they're a better league. I think one coming to the United States may put some effort into it, and there's more topside. I don't think PFL is anything but a B class league, and I may get in trouble for saying that, but I think I can stick by that. I went to their website today, sort of prepping for this, and there's an About Us button, and you hit it, and it goes to a blank page. The UFC is long beyond little stupid stuff like that. But then stuff like that, if somebody was like looking at the PFL, it's like, oh, I've never seen this. Well, I wonder what it's about. And you check their website, man. Having dead pages and stuff. I don't know. You know what I mean? I've also got some inside buzz on Ray Sefo is one of the VIPs over at PFL, and he's a guy that obviously competed at a high level, and that could work for people, and that cannot work for people. And I've heard from more than one person in the business that he holds a grudge. I've got a quote of directly from a former opponent of his, Marvin Eastman, who fought Ray Sefo, and he says that Ray Sefo won't give him the time of day for other fighters. Marvin's got students and kids and people there. They like to show PFL might be a good place for him, and he can't get a phone call. That's very unprofessional. So just in terms of all the signs point to the PFL not really being on the level of the UFC, and should Ngannou decide to sign with them, I think he'll feel that.
Now, I did look up what you mentioned. I didn't see anything saying he was on the broadcast. So,
okay, and that may be something that popped into my head by suggestion. I apologize for confusing things, and that may not be the case. But when you said gravitated, that thought that I had seen that. So it doesn't really matter. Like I said, the PFL, I think would be a mistake for Ngannou, and I don't know. What the PFL is based on too is their tournaments where you walk out of the tournament, you may have $1 million. You've got $1 million tournament win, and you've had a couple of people hang their hats on that, and that's made them news. They've gotten some publicity out of that, especially Kayla Harrison and things. I think she's obviously the most recognizable person there. That's one of the other problems with the PFL. But $1 million shouldn't be enough for Ngannou. What are they going to do? Stick him in a tournament with unknown guys, give them, a chance to break through? Ngannou was supposed to be gearing for a major fight. like a bank breaking type of fight. And I don't see the PFL as being, the playing field for that at all.
Could it be that maybe he does some boxing matches, which increases his name, whether he wins or loses, then fight in the PFL, and that gives PFL the exposure off of that?
I don't trust, coordination deals between sports like that are mutually beneficial and stuff. Yeah. And Ngannou's trying to grab money. If he can do it in boxing, I think boxing was a best bet. But I see, boxing gets shaken up every once in a while. You've got, Tyson Fury still negotiating with Alexander Usyk. And if that fight comes through, then he's going to be on the table waiting. And that's the big bugaboo. With a heavyweight, they can fight, later in life, I think, because they're not as reliant on speed and precision. But, it's still taking years off at this point in your career when you should be monetizing. It's just a bad move all around for Ngannou in my book. Taking lesser boxing matches again, this is what stinks about the whole system. If he gets to fight Tyson Fury, that's the big payday, or even Deontay Wilder, that's the big payday. And let him grab his money, and then let's see how he works his way back to MMA. Here's the problem: if there was any sanity in the sport, Ngannou does not have the resume to fight the world champion. He's an 0-0 boxer. And that would naturally say to yourself, he's going to have to do 10 bouts in about a year, even if he outmatches most of his guys, but about 10 bouts in about a year, get himself up to 10-0 before we can even have the conversation. And people are taking shortcuts everywhere. Everybody's grabbing money, and nobody's really thinking about these things. But so we live in a world where Ngannou's going to go and fight one of the top boxers in the world and get killed. Not killed, but, he's going to get beat. They're not going to allow him to come to their sport and beat them. And they're way too sophisticated at what they do. They look at him as a vanilla package. So if he were able to grab that money and come back, again, the PFL, I think the UFC remains his best option. One could throw a lot of money at him. Maybe even the PFL could throw a lot of money at him. But then who is he going to fight? Because that's also part of the motivation. You got the money in the bank, and then you're not pumped up about the opponent. And Ngannou looks to be business. He looks to be all business kind of thing. And, for $50 million, yeah, he'll get up for it, but you got to have the right opponent for a $50 million fight nowadays, Ngannou should fight Jake Paul.
I tried to put him in there with Joshua. He didn't look all that good. He looks like he's about as far as he can go.
Yeah, Joshua is never was in my book, and I apologize but when you look back at his career, and I watched him at the Olympics, he won a gold medal at the Olympics, at home. And I think that plays a factor because the British audience, especially in boxing and stuff, will definitely give you a little bit of a home field advantage. And then again, that's amateur boxing, and he was dedicated to that. And he is, a pretty special athlete. But that's, at some point, the privilege and hearing in your voice that you're the next Muhammad, in your ear rather, you're the next Muhammad Ali, really affected him. And then, Andy Ruiz really scrambled his eggs, and he hasn't been the same since. Losing to Usyk isn't really, anything to be embarrassed about. Usyk's the best, but man, he had all the incentive this week to really do something, or try to do something, and he really sat back. And it looks like, he's become cautious. He's lost it upstairs, and that's a problem, So yeah, his big time matches, he's begging for the Tyson Fury fight, maybe not Tommy, but doesn't Tyson have another cousin or somebody who boxes? Maybe he can box that guy, because at this point, and I'm pretty sure he does. It's just his name is escaping me, and he's a heavyweight, as well, and he's a decent, ranked heavyweight. It's not like it's an out of the question thing, but that's not where Anthony Joshua was supposed to be destined to be, and I think that caved in for them real fast. What would Ngannou and him do? Again, right now at 0-0, Ngannou's not qualified to fight that guy. Not in boxing, So, and maybe the British Boxing Board of Control has some sanity left, because they feel, I think the American commissions are really will count out to the promoters no matter what. At this point, I think that's proven in their actions. What they allow and things in terms of everything from moving events and at the highest level to the lowest level, the commissions count out to the dollar. The British Boxing Board of Control, I'm sure, is very similar, but maybe they have some care for the love of their sport, and say put a nix on Ngannou, and there's no reason to do Ngannou and Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua is nothing at this point as well. He's a nice draw, but come on, does he go? Is that the way he's going to go? Go back to go through celebrity fights, because that's what that is. That this is a celebrity fight.
Right, but you just said he probably can't get the big fights. Maybe Tyson Fury would fight him because he sees him as, having nothing left, and it might be attractive that way.
All I have behind me is the history of boxing, and Anthony Joshua may, he's still a young man, and his tank, he's put some money away. I'm hoping, because he made a good bit of money. I don't think he's going to get back to those elite paydays, but he can spend the next 10 years being a serviceable doorman, top 10 heavyweight, and, taking home some money and not getting banged up that much, because he doesn't have to fight every couple of months like a young guy. He'd be foolish to not care for himself so much as to become a laughing stock, and I'm talking about, if you actually, found somebody like a Jake Paul or something like that, that would go down. But I think Ngannou's Ngannou's dead serious, but I think it qualifies as that, he's coming to box, and the boxers. You talk about another guy who, at least former world champion, Olympic gold medalist, is Anthony Joshua. With his instincts, should be able to just outbutt. Anthony Joshua could be accused of being a vanilla boxer, but he's going to be so complicated for Ngannou that it doesn't even matter. So again, if he can grab his money in boxing and big money, and Joshua is the third choice there. You know what I mean? So I think the money erodes as you get down the ladder. You know what I mean? So if he can do it, he can do it. But then where does he come back to in MMA? The PFL still does not convince me.
Now, I want to get kind of in your wheelhouse here. Let's kind of talk about history here. Francis Ngannou is at Randy Couture's gym. Randy Couture has some history of being in a similar position with the UFC, both Bob Merowitz and the Zuffa regime. So maybe we could kind of tie that into this story, because I think, me personally, I think they may have talked on the phone or something. I know you said Randy's not as active at the gym or whatever, but I can't believe that topic didn't come up at least once between these two guys.
Well, we'll do a quick crash course in history here, because if it didn't come from Randy himself, then Ngannou's in the right place to have heard some of these stories. And that is under the Zuffa regime that Randy left and went to fight in Japan for a while. He came back at UFC 28, still with Zuffa. He got a little bit more money, and he also got the liberty to return to Japan, so it was more of an open contract. And that's what the original dispute when he left and gave him back their belt was about. So Randy was always kind of like a guy at the forefront of fighting for the fighters' rights and stuff. But he came back, he had a contract. At that point, there was nothing big like the Zuffa stuff. But when he got to Zuffa and the Chuck Liddell loss came about, and he lost his title, he left. And he didn't come back until he had gotten his ancillary rights back. So they actually changed the part of a contract that they are very against doing and won't do. Will actually not sign people who ask for it. So Randy got a very privileged ability to go ahead and have his ancillary rights, which means basically he can go to Hollywood. But put it this way, the UFC could have told him, yeah, but we need you for a title fight. You can't go film, I forget the name of the franchise he's in, but, the Expendables.
Expendables, yeah.
Yeah. So with, you can't take opportunities like that away from him. And, you know, the contract would allow the UFC to do that. Randy knew that beforehand, and that's what the big dispute was about. That's more the level of where Ngannou is right now. That, you know, you're taking away my ability to make money in other places and this, and then you're not paying me enough in this. So, yeah, I'm sure, you know, they may even have a lawyer or a manager that they may have, you know, referred to. You're talking about different generations of fighters, but the problem is still the same, you know. I think he's in the right place to know all that and know that Randy, you know, Randy always had that Hollywood option though. Once he got connected and people realized, you know, that he was the kind of guy that also crossed over onto the big screen, you know, whatever they look for and stuff, and to be, you know, side by side with, you know, Arnold and those guys like that, he got a little bit fast tracked. You know what I mean? I mean, he got lucky, and God bless him. I'm proud, you know, as somebody who got to watch it. You know, um, but yeah, that, you know, Ngannou is nothing like that. Ngannou, not that I know, you could go be a French film star, right? You know, it's like, I don't know, you know, if that's not the kind of big money, that's not what Ngannou envisioned. So I don't know what's on his mind though, because like I said, I don't see anything but like I want more money now. I want more money for my next fight, and no real plan seems to be unraveling itself before our eyes. So yeah, he's an interesting figure in Ghana. I don't know that this PFL thing is the right way. If he goes that way, I'd be very surprised.
But let's talk about, because you were kind of connected a little bit to Randy's, you know, when he was in between, you know, and his time with Zuffa when he was about to go back. So talk about that a little bit.
I was matchmaking at Bodog, and we had, um, you know, at that point, a decent comparable budget and big dreams. You know, um, I had from Vlad, the person I reported to there, I had $3 million approved to offer Randy a one contract fight with Fedor. And I talked to Randy on the phone and offered him that fight. And he said to me that he wished I'd called a couple of weeks earlier, that he had signed with the UFC again, that he had signed a 7-fight deal. And he said that's the $3 million I offered. He said that's about what he's going to be making for every fight in that contract. So he was set. He was happy. And that conversation ended with him saying, but the guy next to me will do the fight. And that turned out to be his friend Matt Lindland. And, you know, if you look at the record, they fought in April. And Randy's return fight to the UFC was in March of 2007. So Randy and Matt, you know, maybe trained together for those fights. And, you know, I missed him by a couple of weeks. But he was, that dispute was because the UFC, the contract he did sign with them, let him go to Hollywood and start his career there and go do that without them being involved. And that's something that, you know, on page 47 now of the contract, you know, a guy who's young and saying, hey, look, you know, my lawyer wants to know about this section. They'll just tell him to screw off, and they're not changing anything, and they'll just move down to the next guy on the list. The next guy on the list may not even have a lawyer, you know, doesn't understand it when he reads it and signs away. But somebody wants to do a movie about him and his career, they got to now get the UFC's approval. There's a lot of other stuff there too. I think the original Randy problem stemmed from him appearing in video games. I think you'd be hard pressed to look back and see Randy Couture's image in one of the UFC early video games. And that's because that's where the fight stemmed from, was the ancillary rights. If you can use it in the video games and you can block me in Hollywood, I'm giving you everything I have, and I can't do that. And Randy was the first guy who was sharp enough to figure that out. You know, and Ngannou's an evolution of that, in that, you know, the system wasn't fixed. It was fixed for Randy, but the system wasn't fixed. He still realized, you know, he's not making enough. And I think that's where the similarities end, because Ngannou's not in a position. If Ngannou has got a Hollywood contract, or even just one movie that they're going to put him and make him a star and pay him, you know, 7 figures, even to, you know, takes a while to get to the big money in Hollywood. You know what I mean? It's like, man, the guy who doesn't have any options, and he's not. This is the other part. you want to delve into history, you can look back at, I believe it was Tommy Burns and Jack Dempsey. This is a different country at that point, but Jack Dempsey was the biggest star in the world. He had just beaten Carpentier. He had broken the first $1 million gate, $1 million box office star. And he was instant, appearances and everything like that. He was literally as well known as the president, through the newspapers, and there were early radio in the 20s and stuff. So a small town in Montana that had dreams of being like a hub, future financial hub and things like that, decides for publicity to stage Jack Dempsey's next fight. And they got Tommy Burns as the opponent, I believe. He was not a huge name. It wasn't a great fight. It turned out to not be a great fight in the ring either. And Dempsey, because he was a big star, put huge financial demands on the town. The town was ruined. There were banks that were closed, and Dempsey and his manager had to get out of there on a train, that they bribed the guy to get them the hell out of there. But they made out with all their money. They got about $255,000 for it. Nobody else got paid or anything like that. It wasn't big enough of a fight. Even then, when the entertainment people planned, there was I'm convinced at that point, the rail tracks in the States were responsible for a lot of people from the East taking their 1 or 2 weeks off from the office job, where they're now the burgeoning, growing middle class. They take a couple of weeks off and head out to the Wild West and go see boxing. The Joe Gans fights, even in 1908, 1910, Vegas, not Vegas, but Nevada, the area, San Francisco, heavy boxing going on out there. And that's where Telegraph started to, unite and put the boxing world together, where it was fractured in the 1910s, So I'm a little bit off topic there, but with all that going on, Dempsey and Ngannou doesn't move. Ngannou is going to, whenever he fights, Ngannou is going to be facing an NBA game or an NFL game or a hockey game for, Canadians, this, that, not worldwide attention like, Dempsey. Dempsey, it was a different type of star back then, but he's got competition. Ngannou doesn't move the radar like a Conor McGregor, like a John Jones, like any of those guys. He was kind of like a silent champion, like a stoic, powerful guy, right? But a huge radar mover, somebody that people are snapping up to put in movies and stuff, where are his options? And again, a guy who wants big fights, if he doesn't get a Tyson Fury fight or Deontay Wilder fight, you say Anthony Joshua, okay, let's move Anthony Joshua up into that tier guy. But how many more people are you going to put on there? Usyk isn't going to consider him, So how many more people fit into that in boxing? He's good for one shot there, I think. And then where do you come back to? So it just doesn't make any sense to me, his strategy here. And again, he's just losing time. I mean, McGregor lost time on his career, but he doesn't care. He's made the type of money he doesn't care. Now the other guy is sitting there and he hasn't touched that kind of money yet, And we haven't seen Ngannou, red wine or something like that from, he needs to fight.
Ngannou whiskey.
Well, whiskey's out there, hot sauces.
Yeah.
People have branched out to do that type of business, get your face on a bottle somewhere that people can buy in a store. And that's, putting your brand at a different level of visibility. So, but, Ngannou doesn't have any of that. Not that I've seen, not at the level of even a Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, but you know how fighters are. I wonder if, and I know you maybe you don't agree, but I wonder if Randy's telling him, look, we might be able to maybe kick this PFL thing up to another notch.
That's bad advice.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm just wondering. He works for the PFL. He's on the broadcast team. Do you think he's telling him, look, we're here. We could be here if you come. Again,
I don't see a great path for the PFL to bring on Ngannou and Mel. I was looking at their heavyweight division, and you know, I don't see anybody that leaps out at me as a compelling match. Um, it's a tough division for there to be talent, and Ngannou had done enough to battle his way up. There are a few things too. Cyril Gane has now, gone from greatness to goatness, and by goatness, I'm talking about really, the four-legged kind, not the all-time great kind. I'm talking about like he's only, he's lost a couple of fights, and now he's like, people are questioning whether he was ever any good and this, that, and the other stuff. If that's the case, then, I think a lot of that goes on with Ngannou. Ngannou did have, trying fights at some point, but he's been on for so long. And, Gane being his last opponent, there's not too much that you can hang your hat on that win. That's a win that he clearly should have got. He was much, he was the guy ahead of the learning curve there and the more sophisticated fighter. And I don't know that that's always the case with Ngannou, so him trying to go to another sport, it's like, man, boxing to me, like I said, it's like ballet. You can't fake boxing, it's like at some point that gets exposed so much, and so you can't do a crash course and get it in a couple of, months or years, like the Jake Paul system of like, well, he's been training for 2 years and stuff. It's like, you're talking about, Tommy Fury's been at least strapping on gloves, and he's average, right? But he's at least strapping on gloves every weekend since he was 10. You know what I mean? It's like that difference is supposed to show if everything's pure. And that's what the expectation of purists from the sport is,
But, maybe somebody like Bob Arum or what's the guy behind Top Rank? Or, I'm sorry, PBC.
Hearn.
Yeah, Hearn. Maybe
Or
they
Al.
could get some trainer behind him and say, look, get this guy ready. Maybe we'll do 2 fights with, some build-up type guys. Get him ready for a big fight. And that guy can come in and kind of dictate the narrative. Yeah, he's ready. You know what I mean?
You know what I think could make Ngannou more money? It sounds a little silly. And this is the kind of thing that I think if the opportunity had presented itself, other guys would have taken it, but, Ngannou. But what if the WWE swept him? And, Lesnar's in his 40s at this point. They got to have an escape plan from that. What if it was he shows up and cleans house and they make him unbeatable for the next 10 years? He'd bank a lot of money and he'd do himself, his Q score a mountain of good, being on TV every week on that show. Very different than being on TV every week in the PFL. And that's what I'm getting at. You got to when you leave something like the UFC, the option should have been, more handy, I think, he does seem like Dana said, Dana uncouthly said it, but it does seem that he's struggling, like to get options, that there's not too many options out there. I don't see like a big surprise, pro wrestling would be a massive surprise. And if he did that, I don't see him as a Vanderlei Silva type of fighter either. Like the guy, he wants his money, let him go get his money. Vanderlei Silva wants money, obviously, also, but he would also, fight you under a bridge for honor. But Ngannou's not about, fighting honor and I'm the toughest guy anymore. So go get your money, go do WWE or something. But I don't see. Would the Japanese pay a fortune for him? To do a one-time thing on Rising or, on a New Year's show or something. But again, who's the opponent? In
They'll
Japan,
find
if you don't have a
somebody.
Sakuraba or somebody to throw at, what are you going to do? Recycle Sexyama or, find a sumo guy that they train for 6 months?
Yeah, they can find some pro wrestlers for him to fight.
It's a scary matchup once you get into the heavyweight divisions for the Japanese, because a lot of their heavyweights are blow-ups. Are guys that are carrying extra weight because the size is important for the show and things like that, but it's not that they're at optimum to face, a guy like Ngannou in a real fight. And now we're off on fictitious territory anyway. You know what I mean? But it's like this is where these seem like more logical money making options to me for Ngannou than what he seems to be perceived. Tyson Fury is looking for other fights.
Now,
Deontay
in his
Wilder.
defense, they can't talk about anything if they don't have anything signed. So there's going to be a period of where there's not a lot of chatter about what he's doing if his manager, whoever he works with, is keeping things under the hat. Well,
If he was close to a Tyson Fury fight, then Tyson Fury wouldn't be in the media negotiating with Usyk.
that fell apart apparently.
And it's been back and fell apart again, and it's been back, and it becomes the kind of thing that so even some world politics getting involved. Usyk is Ukrainian, and Usyk has fought his way into. He's 1-2 with Fury right now. There is they've separated themselves from the rest of the pack. And boxing sometimes doesn't deliver this type of fight. But I think, even world politics will help. In other words, that Usyk will have the backing from his country and money and things that he'll be motivated to do it. And I think Fury, should be motivated because this guy not only, beat Anthony Joshua, but he went back and did it again. And, he dispatched the big money fight that Tyson Fury, I think, was banking on. I think Tyson Fury was going to have a much easier time with Anthony Joshua than he's going to have with Usyk. So he's going to be forced to work for his money, but that's the big money fight for him now. And again, the Ngannou thing would be a side circus.
Yeah, but it's all about how much can you get for that one side. So kind of like McGregor with Mayweather. He doesn't have to fight. He will every now and then, but he can sit
No,
around if he wants.
I think if they were looking at somebody being able to put a package like that together, where both of them are going to make 9 figures, I think we could see that happen. But I think that there are obstacles to that. One of them being, where's the money come from? And I don't, I'm the, you can count me on the type of person that really doesn't care. But Fury has had some ties with people that bring up questions in England.
Mhm.
For a big money fight, that guy's going to be hanging around. So, there are a lot of obstacles. And Ngannou's the kind of guy that I think he's a baby, an innocent, looking for his payday and stuff. And I'm afraid for him in that he might not get it.
But how about Fury and him in Africa? Because I'm sorry, Wilder and him in Africa. There has been talk of that.
Yeah, that certainly would probably put the fight under the auspices of a commission that'll answer to money and not, logic and actual policing of the sport. Like I said, Wilder, he's got to be up around 40 something fights at this point in his career. He was a little bit of a late starter, but there's nothing like that on Ngannou's. Ngannou did MMA, and it just. I hope they do. Wilder's another guy. I think that the huge paydays escaped him. I know he's got, a handicapped child, and at the end of the day, he can be sometimes a little goofy in public and stuff like that. But the bottom line is he was thrust there, and he has done, a lot of work to stay there and get his money because of his daughter and because of his life and stuff like that. So I think overall Wilder's a nice motivational fighter, but ask yourself, Wilder's not Muhammad Ali. Wilder is a guy that the big money's escaped him. Why? Because you walk down any street in America and, unless you're a boxing fan, the heavyweight champion of the world should cross over and be known to everybody, right? I think everybody on the planet knew Rocky Marciano, Muhammad Ali, and, to a certain extent, You can go further than that. George Foreman, those guys. It's not like
Tyson
that
for
anymore.
sure.
Yeah, it's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
Um, not for Wilder. Wilder didn't capture America that way or the world that way, and that's unfortunate.
But they were talking about doing like the anniversary of Rumble in the Jungle. And I'm sure they could, build a decent spectacle out of that.
Rumble in the Jungle keyed upon a despot dictator footing the bill. So yeah, you can go and maybe find somebody with deep pockets in Africa who's going to, take a loss, but it's a blip on the radar to their other income, and they want to do it for the feather in their cap. But last time I looked at world politics, the world's getting more complicated, not more simple. And there have been other groups in Africa that are looking to do. Africa is a location where there are growing economies and things, and you see, I think Gary Goodridge was even approached about doing fights in Uganda and things like that. But I think you do got to be very careful where you're going to do it. I think the fighters will be okay; they'll make their money. But a lot of the, if they're counting on people traveling or going to see it and things like that, I think the world's grown more complicated than that. So if they do it, it'll be interesting. I've long thought, the time of Usman and Adesanya, if anybody could pull off a show in Africa, it would be a powerhouse like the UFC who could put their whole power behind it. And they didn't do it. And I don't know if I'm just reading between the lines, but they didn't do it. So I think that's a tough business deal. You need a Don King. I don't know. I don't know how he pulled it off back then, and I'd be surprised if somebody could pull that off now.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about,
Yeah.
but I think that's one that would pop if they were able to do it because of like you were talking about. It's been so long since we've seen anything of note. Now, Africa does have a pretty good history of boxing and
Oh yeah,
they have some young fighters out there right now that maybe they could try and get involved in the event, but
yeah. But here's the history of that. If you look at where there are British colonies and they're part of the Commonwealth, like Ghana, I think is one of them. That's a boxing hub
mhm.
and also belongs in the British Commonwealth. Um, so it's British related. The boxing traditions are there, and they've created world champions and high level fighters and things like that. But what you don't see there is a tradition of the big shows. Every fighter's gone out of the country to make big money.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a little bit of an insult to head to Ghana and stop Ghana. And I don't even know if stopping Ghana and having everyone in Ghana watch the fight, make it that type of spectacle, because that's what you have to do. Ghana's not, it's a nice economy for Africa, but it's not. You got to do it in Nigeria, 130 million people, or you got. It's not easy, man. I wouldn't want to have to be the guy dotting the T, the I's and crossing the T's for that, because it's complicated.
Well, it's going to
Or
be
you could
interesting
just
to see.
no contracts needed. Just go and show up.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But, I think this was a good thing to talk about in terms of history and tying Couture into this. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you with this one, Miguel. And for everybody that, has been watching MMA Conspiracy Hour, we appreciate your support. And again, please check out Live to Fight Design. Our promo code is Todd Atkins. You can get 20% off. Until next time, take care.